Hi there, I'm Barry Staver.
Hi, I'm Joe Farace. Welcome to our new studio. We're here in beautiful downtown Parker, Colorado in Discovery Park. And we're happy to be here. Hey, Barry, what do you think of this new place?
Well, Joe, it's more than I've got in my little tiny studio at home, and it's awesome. It's got everything you'd want to come in and make a video production.
Well, Barry, good morning.
Good morning to you, Joe.
How you doing this morning?
Top of the day to you. I'm just fine. It's a great day.
It is a nice day, you know. It's like going to be 70 degrees. The sun is going to shine. But it's going to snow tomorrow, but that's Colorado for you.
Tomorrow into Saturday, just in time for the holiday.
Oh, that's right. We have to have snow on Easter.
Yes, we have.
We have to put the bunny in a sled. So, what are you drinking this morning?
You know, today I've thrown in just some black tea.
Black? Just straight?
I've gotten to be drinking some tea, as not just coffee.
Have I made you a tea drinker?
You have gotten me started on tea a bit.
Isn't that amazing?
You know, I've become a bit of a matcha tea fan.
Oh, you and Kevin. Kevin Elliott, who I would love to bring on our little podcast sometime. So what I think a lot of people don't know is I've known you for a long time.
Yes.
I mean, it could be 40 years.
Oh, I think it is 40-ish plus a bit.
I think it is. I think so. And I first met you at an ASMP meeting that was held at your house, and you showed us slides in a slide projector. I assume it was a Kodak. Were you using carousel projectors?
Oh, it was a
back
Kodak
then?
carousel projector.
And you showed us
bet.
slides, some of your assignments that you did for People magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being wowed by the quality of the work and the sensitivity of the work as well.
Well, thank you.
But anyway, what happened was then when you were shooting all this stuff for Time Life and for People magazine, you were shooting everything on film, right?
Oh, you bet. It was film.
So what kind of film did you use?
I shot, I would say 95% of my work was on Kodak Tri-X Pan. And you bought it in bricks of 20 of these boxes wrapped in plastic.
Wait a minute. Did you buy the film or did they give you the film?
Oh, no. Since I was not a contract photographer, basically a freelancer, independent, I bought the film.
Did they reimburse you for that?
And they reimbursed.
Oh,
yeah.
that's pretty good.
Expense account. Yes.
But did you shoot any color at all?
For the cover.
Oh.
I shot maybe 4 or 5 covers for them.
Well, of course, you did the very
years.
famous cover that most people knew about at the time, was the famous Who Shot JR
Who
cover.
Shot JR. But that was on chrome film.
Chrome film.
And let me think here. Some of it was shot on Kodachrome because there wasn't a deadline issue, and it could be processed a little more leisurely.
But you would think that in New York they would have pretty quick turnaround for Kodachrome.
Well, they did, but people's deadline was a Monday and into Tuesday for photos. And the one cover I'd shot in Aspen of Claudine Longet,
Wow.
I photographed her 2 days before her manslaughter trial started. And that was on Ektachrome. And it turned out I had to shoot outside, and it was a snowy, overcast day, and I'm sure whatever Ektachrome speed there was back in the late 1970s, it had to be push processed.
Here's what's interesting about Ektachrome. Did you know, this is some film trivia, since we're talking about film, Ektachrome came out in the 40s.
I did not know that.
Me either, until recently. And there were various processes all under the E name. There was E1, E2, E3. And most likely, when you were shooting it, it was E4 process, because evidently the E3 process wasn't all that stable as far as longevity and archivalness.
All right.
So the E4, the E4s were 64 ISO, but they were moving into 100 somewhere in the 70s, but I know by the 80s Ektachrome was 100. But there was also high-speed Ektachrome, which that was an E4 film that was like 160, but you could push it to 400. Okay. So you don't even remember what you used. It was straight Ektachrome, though. It wasn't a high-speed Ektachrome.
I believe it was just straight, and it needed to be then shipped And shipping that film back in those days is a whole nother topic we could get into if you want to.
Yeah,
to
I
do
think
that.
that'd be good for a future episode.
But the thing with film was that you, of course, never knew what you had until it was processed, and you had either proofs back or negatives to look at. And to add to that, it wasn't stressful then. That's how we lived with it. But
because that's the way it was, and that really
Yes.
kind of brings me to the question I had for you.
Well, let me quickly finish, because then a bit of added stress, because I didn't get to see it first and do any editing.
Oh.
At Time Life and most of those magazines, the rule was shoot and ship. You shot the film, you put it in envelopes and bags, you took it to the airport, and it was shipped to New York.
You
where
took it
was
to the airport. There was no
processed
FedEx then?
there. Oh, gosh, no.
So you got to take it to the airport, and you had to ship it like luggage?
No, they're at the baggage claim counter, where people would line up if their bags were lost. That's where you took it, and they had a way bill, and of course, over time, I'd gotten many air bills that were empty, so you could fill them out before you had to rush to the airport and ship the film. There was a courier in New York that would make the rounds of the New York airports.
You mean a
multiple
Time Life
times over
and a
the
Time
weekend.
Life employee?
Yeah. And pick up the film, take it into the Time Life lab, which ran probably, 24/7, but it was processed when the photo editors walked in on Monday morning. Contact sheets were on their desk.
Monday morning?
Yes. That's how it was done in the film world, with film in these little tiny boxes.
So here's a question for you. It's actually two questions. Number one, okay, did you think that film was going to last forever? That we would never always be shooting film? That would be the way we would make images.
Oh,
because
sure.
that happened,
It would-
it was 150 years old at that time from
And by
film.
the time you or I would be gone, people would still be shooting film.
But that turned out to be not the case.
That didn't happen. No.
Yet. So when did you make the transition to digital?
I took a part-time job in the mid-'90s back at the Denver Post, where I'd begun my career, do some photo editing, and they were into digital with a couple of those really ancient Kodak
What year
cameras.
was that? The 90s?
96 or 7, and they had two of those really expensive Kodak
Oh, those
cameras.
original Kodak, they were like 1.2 megapixels.
Yes. So I started to get immersed in it then, and then as the cameras became more available, everybody on the staff had digital cameras, and the processing machine went away for the C41. So it was then. I had a head start because many of my competitors in the commercial, independent corporate world of photography were really reluctant, and they stuck to film. And I basically had cameras supplied to me, and I learned the technology without having to.
learned it early.
Yes, go to school for it or pay somebody.
You were
to
going
teach
to
me.
school for it.
I was,
in
but
effect.
at my job. Yeah.
Which is even better because you're getting paid to learn how to do it.
That's true. It was nice.
So you still have this film. Are you keeping it in your refrigerator?
These two rolls, no. These were what I would call sit-arounds on my shelf in my office.
So they're
just
like
to remind
office
me.
decor.
Office decor. This one, this Tri-X, developed before 12 of 1982, and I have no
Let's see.
desire to open that box.
Wait a minute. That's 43 years old? I can't do math
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, it's a little over that.
And the other one, what's the expiration date on
The other
that?
one is a Plus X, and it's much newer film.
Oh,
It's
man.
best to process before July of 1999.
Oh, wow.
So it's really new compared to this.
But the funny thing is they still make Tri-X, Plus X and Panatomic X. They don't make anymore, which were, I loved Plus X.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we would always shoot portraits on Plus X, but then we had to go to Team X 100 and Team X 400.
That's right.
So the big question I was going to ask is, are you shooting film now? You have this film, but it just sits around the house.
I am not shooting film now, just digital. And I had told you earlier that in some of our conversations that I don't have any film cameras, but in fact I do.
Oh, that's exciting.
I have my father's old film camera, one of those Kodaks with the bellows that would pop down and out, and you looked in this little viewfinder. I don't know what film size it took.
As long as it doesn't use 127 or 620, although there's workarounds for 620. 620 is the same width as 120. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
But the spools are different. So Kodak came out with 620, so it would lock you into using their cameras. Like the Brownie Hawkeye, which was my second film camera after a Brownie, box Brownie that I got when I was 8. They used 620 film, but 620 was relatively available everywhere back then. Now, I think there are some 620, and people are respooling 120 film onto 620 spools and so you can get 620. So if it's not 127 or 620, if it's only 120, there's plenty of. You can even get Kodak Gold, which is like what a great film that is, in 120.
Well, I didn't.
You should bring that next time.
I will.
Bring it.
It's really in a hard place to get to, so I wasn't able to do it for today.
But
I will dig
you
it out.
dig it out?
Oh gosh, yes.
That'd be
so
great.
that's it for film cameras. No other modern cameras at all, and
I'm not sure.
don't want to buy one.
I don't know. Leica remade the M6 film camera. They sold them out instantly. The only other people making film cameras are people like Lomography, which they charge crazy numbers. Or you can still buy a Holga for like $50 or something like that.
Wow.
So that's our introduction to film discussion here on the blog, and maybe we'll be talking about it in the future. So let's move on to show and tell.
Oh, go for it, Matter.
Okay, I brought actually a couple of lenses and a camera. People always ask me about what's a cheap way to get into digital photography. And I really think that the Olympus EM10 is probably the best choice. You can pick these bodies up for about $200 on eBay. With a little more, if you want to spend more, you can get a kit lens like this one. This is like a 14 to 40 something. What is that? 14 to 42. For some reason, Panasonic kit lenses are like 14 to 43. For whatever weird reason, the 1 millimeter difference. Anyway, for a little more than $200, you can get that. But this is a really nice camera. And Olympus sold this with a little grip because it's a very small camera. You can see it's kind of small. They sold this little grip, and the grip has a little mounting point that doesn't block the place to get to the battery or
battery door. Nice.
The SD card.
Nice.
But it makes it real easy to hold because without it, there's a little bump in the design of the camera, but this gives it a little extra if you need it. I don't have big hands; they're like more or less U.S. medium. I always think.
Oh, you got to have a. You have to have a grip.
This is 16 megapixels. Mm-hmm. It has 3-axis image stabilization built in, which came in real handy for these lenses I'm going to talk about in a minute. And the thing I like about it is it's pretty good quality. And we're going to talk a little bit about Micro Four Thirds system during our question and answer period. But it's a great little camera. Now, why did I bring this? And that's because...
Yeah, why did you bring that? What's in those boxes?
Now, look at these boxes. Do they look like the same box?
Well, just
except the labels.
From this distance?
Here, you can hold them. Tell me if they're the same box.
Well, this one is in a language I cannot read, so I do not know.
Yeah, but you don't have to worry about the labels. Anybody can stick a label on there.
The boxes look similar.
Yeah, well, to me, they're the same. There's this company called Kex, and they're in Hong Kong, and they make these really wonderful little light meters, the little tiny little aluminum things that slip onto your shoe, hot shoe, cold shoe, depending on how old your camera is. So if your camera doesn't have a light meter, and that's like, well, every camera has a light meter for all the users who grew up with digital, That wasn't the case with film cameras. Many film cameras didn't have a light meter, and some that did have them over the time, like some of my Canons are 30 to 35 years old, they stopped working. So Keck makes a really nice light meter. So I heard they were making this lens that looked like an Oreo. And I knew
I like Oreos.
everybody likes Oreos.
Yeah.
So I thought I would get one. And I really wanted to get it for Micro Four Thirds, but they only had it for two mounts, Fuji X and the Canon EF-M mount, which I have a EOS M6 Mark II. So this is the cookie lens from Keck's that cost $30, I think, plus shipping from Hong Kong. So does that look like an Oreo to you?
Well, if I'd have known you were bringing these, I would have brought my own Oreos.
Well, that would
and
be
we
great.
would have
We should have
eaten
done
them.
that.
Well, it's too
We
late
could
now.
have like a munchie session.
Yeah, it's an Oreo cookie, but on the inside, clearly, it's not.
Right. Well, it has a plastic lens mount, and it mounted to my Canon and took some really nice pictures out here of the giant ball and jack sculptures.
All right.
And but I really wanted to get one for this camera or for all of my Micro Four Thirds. For some reason, I keep losing count. I think I have 9 Micro Four Thirds cameras.
Oh, my God.
I think that's probably
9?
Yeah. I have like 3 for infrared. Then I have the EP3, and then I have EM10, this one, and then EM5. I don't know what that number is. Oh, then that's Panasonic's. Then I have, I think maybe it's more than 9. So I tend to be obsessive about things, and so naturally I kept looking for.
How many would you use at one time or on one
When
shoot?
we go to, what is that place called? Gardens, Hudson Gardens?
Oh, Hudson Gardens.
We go to Hudson Gardens, I take
You
2
have done 2.
cameras that have, 2 infrared cameras that have different sensors, filters on them so that I can get different looks. So I don't like to use 2 cameras at a time because I found in the past that if I ever take 2 cameras, and this happened at Hudson Gardens too, they tend to bang into each other because I'm a klutz, and I like to keep my cameras looking nice. So anyway, I get emails every day from AliExpress. Now, all this has changed with tariffs and things like that since I did this. So I get an email from AliExpress, and they showed me another cookie lens that looked a lot like this one, but it wasn't, as it turns out when I got it. It looks exactly the same, except there's a few things missing, like there's no filling, and we all know that's the best part.
That's the first thing I noticed from
Here,
across
take a look
here.
at that.
There's
You
no
know,
filling.
here's what's interesting about that, is the design on top is exactly the same, but it's smaller.
Yeah.
Its circumference is smaller than the other lens, but it's available for Micro Four Thirds, and my out-of-pocket was $8.61, including shipping from China.
Whoa.
So I took it out to the jacks and ball and took pictures with this camera. This 16 megapixel camera, the Canon is a 24 megapixel camera,
Okay.
and the Canon has a 1.6 factor. This has a 2.0 factor. So it's supposed to be a 25 millimeter lens, f8, which translates into 50 millimeters on this camera and 40 millimeters on the. So the question, as they say, quiz for duck. How did the lens perform comparison between the two? What would you guess they would look like?
Well, just more expensive things tend to be better, you always hear and think. So that would be what I would guess.
Well, there's no difference.
No difference.
0.
Wow.
If you look at the picture, even though this is only 16 megapixels, which may or may not be an issue for some people, they look the same. First of all, it appears, and this is not scientific by any means, that they use the same lens on both of these. Now, these are lenses, recycled lenses from disposable cameras.
No.
Yes.
Because that's true. The part that's crucial is this little tiny
Yes.
1/4 of an inch in diameter piece of plastic.
Compare them.
And now you're telling me recycled.
Recycle. So when you drop off a recycled camera, you drop off a recycled camera at the lab, they crack them up, and evidently somebody somewhere is recycling, maybe the bodies themselves, and someone thought, well, geez, maybe we could sell some people these lenses. And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe they put them back in more disposable cameras. So here's the interesting thing. To shoot this on my Canon, and also I found out with this one on the Panasonic, you have to set the camera in a mode that's like lens not attached, or I'm trying to remember the actual name. No lens attached or something like that, to allow the camera to fire.
Yes.
You've heard of that
Yes.
thing. Okay. With the Olympus, I'm looking in the menus. So where's the no lens attached option? There isn't any. And the reason there isn't any is because they don't need it. You just stick it on there and it shoots.
And shoot.
So it was very simple and easy to use.
Wow.
But because it was no lens attached, or whatever the heck that menu item is on the Canon, when I look at the XF data, it shows no aperture. But when I look at the XF data on this, it shows f11. Now, ostensibly, this is supposed to be a f8 lens, but it shows up as f11. But it even has some words in here. I can't read it. Focus free.
Right.
And it is both are focus free, just point and shoot.
Sure.
That's really the kind of the joy of the thing.
I agree.
One of the things that has always driven me about photography, you're much more serious about photography. You take serious pictures and tell stories that affect people's lives. I mean, so you're laughing, but it's true. That's what you do. Me, I've never been that kind of guy. I mean, back when I was a corporate photographer, I did stuff that helped sell telephone systems.
Sure.
So how exciting was that, right? And when we had our studio, we did portraits and stuff, and there was nothing that changed the world.
Well, but it changed the world for those people you photographed.
Well, that's nice of you to say that.
Oh, no, it definitely is, because I'm thinking however many years ago a lot of that was, those people still have those images, and now they're historical.
So anyway, that's my show and tell. Let me put these mounts back on, and you can tell us what you have brought with you today, along with this beautiful camera. This is
it's a Lumix GH5 Mark II.
How many megapixels does that have?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. I believe it's 20.
Well, we're going to talk more about that on the question and answer period.
Let's see if I can quickly get into it. Yes, it's a 20 megapixel camera.
But is that a 20 megapixel no matter what format you shoot? So if you
Yes.
so if you shoot 3x2, it's 20. If you shoot 4x3, it's 20.
Yes.
And that I think I got locked into that 3:2 thing, and I would shoot these cameras at 3:2 aspect ratio, and the problem is I was throwing away part of the image. But they made the sensor bigger to give you the option of no matter what. Even if you shoot square, do you get 20? Because I know you like to shoot square.
I believe so.
That's pretty cool.
I tend to do 90% of my portrait work in square, ratio 1:1.
So tell me why that is.
Well, for several reasons. I have found that on websites. Certainly when a company is featuring, the about page of who works at the company, the images have been square. And they certainly are that way in social media. They get cropped to square.
That's the default on
So
Instagram.
it seemed to be, I can get all I need in a square format with my subjects. And the other reason it's so
Do
nice.
you show them as square pictures to the people?
Oh, yes. And early on when I would do it, I would tell people that I'm going to be shooting these square. Is there any need to do anything different? Yes. Because at some companies, they already have an existing library of images.
Oh.
And if they're all a bit more vertical, have a little bit more body in the picture, and I turn them all in square, we're going to have a problem. They're going to have a problem.
They're going to have a problem with you.
And the other reason...
They're going to have a problem paying your invoice.
That's it. And the other reason is it's so much easier to have the camera like this and shoot square than to turn it and get over here into vertical, even tripod mounted with the screen that flips. And I would put that on my tripod because I like to be away. I don't like to have my eye at the viewfinder when I'm shooting portraits with people.
Do you like to use the back screen?
I like to look at the screen because I want to have rapport with my subject. And you don't get much rapport like this. But if I'm here talking to you and working it.
That's the way Mary shoots.
That's why I like
always
square.
looks over the camera.
Yes.
And you know what she does? And it works for me, even though we've been married 43, 44 years, whatever it is. She would look over the camera and smile at me. And it's like, you can't, it's human.
I have several things I was going to surprise you with because maybe I'll sneak in too quickly.
Why not?
This is some of the best equipment that you can have in your bag. And it's not cheap duct tape that you buy at Home Depot to wrap around the ductwork in your home. This is gaffer's tape. It's 4 or 5, maybe is it 6 times more expensive?
It's much more expensive, but worth every penny.
Because it is more of a canvasy, and it tears easily. And when you put it on a surface, I would say not 100% of the time, but almost all of the time, it will not tear off the paint when you take it up at the end. I've put it on walls in people's homes, and I've put it in lots of places like that. And I mean, that's a big deal. If you're in someplace shooting and working, and you start to pull up tape or whatever you've left, and it starts ripping the place apart.
So where do you get your gaffer's tape?
Oh, boy. I've found it at photo supply stores here in the Denver area.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like Denver Pro Photo?
Denver Pro Photo has it. Certainly any of those houses have it, and usually it's got to come in these big rolls. It used to be really easy to get a small spool with a little bit, and if you're traveling and working light, I've often taken this tape and found a little cylinder of some kind and unrolled from the big roll onto the small roll to travel with it easier. So that was one piece of equipment I was going to share and talk about.
Gaffer's tape is it's one of those unsung things that people don't talk about until you need it. And then when you need it, especially, although we didn't do it here, when we would do assignments, I'm sure for you, when you were using cables, you would tape them down.
Oh,
because you don't want people falling
tripping over them.
Because
exactly.
They will, or they'll drop, not only trip over them, but they'll pull your light, come smashing down.
Well, or like you use it to set a mark on the floor.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if the floor is in our shot or not, but if you need the people to come to the same spot over and over again, that's what's done in Hollywood.
That's in the movies. They always have their marks.
And
we used to always make T's, and I would tell people, T for toes. We would make little T's.
Wow.
And you put your toes there.
Okay.
That was our shtick.
Yeah, so it's good for lots of, I used some black gaffer's tape in this very room this morning.
Yes.
To help us
make this background look nice.
Make the background look nice. And That's all I'm going to say about it.
Yes,
But there is
it's
some
a secret.
tape,
It's a secret.
and we're hoping it doesn't come
Fall
loose
down.
and fall down. So, is that enough, or is there time to talk one more piece of equipment?
Yeah, let's do one more.
Well, I'll go to the lens then.
This lens?
This one, because the one I'd love to talk about is on the camera recording. I'll do it another time. I have used these Panasonic Micro Four Thirds cameras for now 12 years. The GH3 was the first I got.
I had a GH3 because I can tell from the XF data, but I don't
Okay.
remember owning it. How
All
can that even be?
Because you
But
have many
true.
cameras you have? I wouldn't be able to keep track of the two I've got, let alone 30, 20.
It's not 30. It's
It's
well,
a
I think
lot.
if you count my film cameras, it's a number between 25 and 30.
Okay. Well, I've purchased the two. In one way, I think of them as the two most boring lenses you can ever own and use. But at the very same time, I'll go 180 degrees and tell you that they're two of the most important ones for the type of work that I do. There's the mid-range zoom and the telephoto zoom. Because when you're at an event, it doesn't matter what it is, you're not always able to move yourself to get in closer like a street photographer that would have just a 50 millimeter or a 35 millimeter lens. So this is the 35 to 100, which I'm still living in that old film camera world and full frame and would call it a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. And the one on the camera is the 12 to 35,
Oh,
which
that
is
sounds
the wider
nice.
zoom. It's easy to get
24 to
complacent
70.
with it and just shoot kind of boring straight on. I've got to force myself to do different angles. But,
Not really. I think it's instinctive with somebody like yourself.
well, but you have to still,
Think about it.
yes, you do have, that's something you do have to think about. So what I like about the lenses, they both have the same front size element. So one set of filters will go on both. They focus
That
and
reminds
zoom
me.
the
Let
same
me
way.
interrupt you a second.
Yeah.
Are you a big believer in putting like a skylight filter on your lenses?
I have a UV filter on these two lenses. Mostly
And that's because you use them a lot?
for protection. If I'm on a serious shoot, I will take them off.
Is that right?
Yes, and that's just a quirky thing that probably doesn't make a bit of difference.
But that's probably a good brand, right? What kind of brand is that?
Well, this is a B+W.
Well, that's an expensive filter.
Yes.
That's not a cheapo filter.
No, it's not. So it's been worth it. It's made in Germany. It's not a
Yeah.
cheapo.
And they use good glass.
Yes.
Anyway, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
It needs to be good quality all the way through.
Yeah.
It still does. I mean, as much as people use the darn phone for their photography, yeah, I still think the quality is there with the glass. And so I can have my variable neutral density filter.
Do you
One
use that a
filter
lot?
works outdoors shooting video all the
Oh,
time.
for video.
Oh, yes. I don't have too much need for it with stills, but a huge difference for video.
Even with like 200 ISO, you're using that?
Well, outdoors, yeah, and it's bright, and you're shooting at
kidding.
a 60th of a second running
Oh.
your video. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You've got to have some way to filter that down.
Because if you're shooting stills, you might be shooting at 125th or 250th. And so-
500th, 1,000th of a second, and
Yeah,
nice
sometimes.
wide opening. I'd like to have that opportunity with video, so the filter does it. So I guess my show and tell is these two lenses that are compatible, easily interchangeable.
These are
between the
Leica
cameras.
lenses, right? These are Leica?
No, these are not.
These are not.
No.
'Cause you have
most
some
of their
Leica
Leica
lenses.
lenses are not zooms.
Oh, I have a
Fixed
45
focal.
2.8 macro Leica lens that I love with the image stabilization.
Yeah.
I love that lens. I use it for portraits more than macro.
All right. So yeah, and these have got the image stabilization. There's things I should have made notes.
That's
I
okay.
think of things after we're done. You can
So,
ask
wait,
in the comments, and
the-
I'll answer
yes.
back.
In fact, you can ask us in the comments about any of the stuff we're talking about. So this is image stabilized lens, but the body is not.
No, the body is.
The body is.
Oh,
So
yeah,
so
I guess from
is the-
GH 4 or 5 on.
so from the four, not from the 4. I have a 4.
Okay.
No.
So the 5 on.
So the
has got
5 on
body
has image. Oh man.
and lens. So I mean, the great, and we'll talk Micro Four Thirds another.
Well,
at
in
some
a few
point.
minutes.
But I can shoot handheld with the IS settings turned on, and it can be almost as steady as on a tripod. And I don't
Wow.
need to put a gimbal on it and do all that stuff. I can just walk handheld, and if you're running and gunning, it's great.
Wow. Well, hey, that was really interesting. So let's move on to questions from our
Ooh,
commenters.
all right. What you got, Joe?
Okay. The first question is actually for you, Barry,
Oh boy.
but I'll be glad to chime in because I can be a chatterbox, as we know. I'm sorry, but I am. Says, I read your post about being a newbie infrared photographer. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. What attracted you to infrared photography in the first place, which I think is a terrific question, by the way, and what kind of gear do you use for making infrared photographs? So let's start with what attracted you to infrared
Well, I'll
photography.
point the finger that way because Joe got me interested in it, like he's gotten me into so many other avenues and genres of photography instead of just the photojournalism that I had done so much. I've seen infrared images. I never understood it one bit, and he got me interested in it. You sent me to that, was it Life Pixel site where they will convert cameras specifically to one type of infrared?
Well,
That-
I think they have a choice of like 8 or
Right.
so, different kinds.
But to me, that was far better than trying to put these red filters and do all that kind of stuff. That always turned me off to infrared.
Well, part of the problem is the filters are the cheapest way to do it,
Okay.
even though the filters themselves aren't cheap anymore. I mean, a Stingray filter, which is probably the best one, is like $175. That's a
would
lot of
think.
money. A conversion for this camera is like $250, $275. So for another $100, you can handhold it, and
Right.
that's the big thing.
Oh, okay.
Plus, you're not looking through a dense filter.
Exactly.
In fact, what I always had to do with filters is compose it with the filter off, stick the filter
Oh.
on. It can be awkward, but it's the least expensive way to try it if you want to try it.
Well, I'm
Especially if you
thinking
get a Hoya filter.
it'd be like watching grass grow. You take the filter off, you focus, put it back on, and by then the wind's blown and all the leaves have fallen off. You lost your shot.
Oh, and that's the big problem with the perfect thing is the leaves are blowing. So anyway,
And you ask about equipment?
no,
or-
I'm still not finished with the. I mean, just me of all things.
Yes, and then
But
I
did you
started
like
to
the
look
pictures?
at images. They were just different. They were unique. It was something I hadn't tried. I mean, I have still yet to conquer underwater photography successfully.
Well,
so
you
now
are
I've got
you are a certified skin diver, right?
Well, yeah, I do have scuba certification. I don't know, being landlocked here in Denver, the toughest part is getting to some nice warm water to do that. So I can check off infrared now as something I have feeling like I've accomplished.
Is
and
there
tried.
is there a Nikonos digital? Do you know?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Because
I'm
that'd be
sure
the way
there
to go.
is,
Because
yeah.
housings are a big pain in the butt.
And since we talked earlier about the gaffer tape, I don't want to tell you what happened behind you.
Oh no!
Our panel fell down.
Oh no!
Oh.
Now you know what the tape was used for.
Well, I need more tape. What else can we
That's
say?
that's the answer
That
to
is-
everything. More tape.
More tape.
So what do you shoot with then when you're doing your
Well,
infrared
again,
photography?
I listened to what you did and what you've done.
Oh, you learn from my mistakes.
Well, and from the things you've done correctly, which there's a ton of them. I took an old GH4 when I got my GH5s, and I sent it in and had it converted. So for me, the beauty of that is I've got cameras with the same feel, the same controls are in the same place. And I can use the same lenses on the camera when I'm shooting infrared or whether I'm shooting these with standard lighting.
Do you have I noticed that you were shooting some close-up stuff when we were in Hudson Gardens last time.
Yes.
Are you using a macro lens for those?
Yes, I've got that Olympus.
16 millimeter Olympus.
Yes, which again you recommended as
Oh,
something I
I have
should
one of
try.
those. They're a
Yes,
great lens.
they
That's a
are.
heck of a nice lens.
Yeah, but again, all of that.
But
fits
you
this
seem to
camera.
be attracted to those kind of things. I kind of go for the big, broad landscapes, but you seem to look at the more closer look at nature. Is that intentional or just what? What is the
again? I guess it's just something that's intrigued me to do some of both, which is a nice reason to have more than one lens you're carrying along with you, so you can swap them out.
I'm looking forward to it because I have some things I want to try,
Okay.
some new things.
Oh, cool.
Because I really, it's funny. You go to a place twice, and you think, well, it's the same old stuff. But the pictures I took the second time don't look anything like the pictures I took the first time.
Well, is that because of the intensity of the light and how it?
We were very careful about making sure we're there at 12:1, which is the golden hour for
Right.
infrared. But I don't know. I mean, the fact that they had the Halloween decorations up didn't really affect it because I tried to keep them to a minimum.
Right.
So I would like to get there where they don't have any of those, to try some of those same kind of images. But
Well,
it's a wonderful place.
It is.
Okay, so let's get to the second question. And it says, for both of us, you both seem like Micro Four Thirds. You both seem to like Micro Four Thirds cameras and lenses. Why is that? So that's question one. Number two, doesn't the small sensor bother you? And what kind of cameras and lenses do you use? Although you've kind of hit that on your side of things.
From my side.
But I'll hit it a little bit. Let's start with, why is that? What attracted you to Micro Four Thirds?
The size and the weight, the convenience. You know, the size matters argument is always there, but I had carried Nikons and Canons and the big long glass for decades. And I saw these and put my Canons and lens next to it for comparison. And see, I don't have those anymore, so we can't show and tell that way. But that was one of the main reasons I decided to switch.
Even though now that you had become a dedicated digital photographer and cast off those film camera days, the sensor was, I don't know if it's half as big, but it's much smaller.
Yes, it is.
17.3 by 13 millimeters or something like that versus 24 by 36. Of course, when we first got into the whole digital thing, it was a long time before there was a 24 by 36 camera.
Yes.
They were all smaller. They were all APS-Cs and even smaller.
They were. Yeah.
I don't know how big the sensor was in that Kodak, which cost crazy money, by the way. You're talking about those 1.2 megapixel Kodaks. They cost like $20,000. They were
$25,000.
crazy
Oh,
numbers.
they were. Yeah. Yeah. And the other reason I went with this is I was starting to get into some video shooting, some hybrid shooting where you, with a client, they want some video and then they want some stills. And this Lumix at the time, back in 2013, was it.
I think that's still true in the Micro Four Thirds world. I mean, Olympus does better video than they used to, but that was never their focus. But Panasonic's been in video for a long time.
Oh, sure, because they have dedicated
Video
a
cameras.
line of video cameras from broadcast quality
Yeah.
down. But I could shoot stills. I could just turn the dial just to the creative movie mode, push the
They
button.
have a creative movie mode?
Oh, yeah, it's not, you don't just have it, I mean, you can be shooting stills and push the red button, and it does some automated captures video. But that's not what my clients would want, and it's not what I want. So you get some settings preset, and you switch back and forth, and I can shoot a video clip. I can, just at the turn of a switch, be shooting still photos, and that, to me, in a fast-moving environment, is key. So that and the size are why I decided to stick with it.
Now, in our preview, if anybody caught that, you mentioned noise. And you had said, I don't know if I'm talking out of school, But the cameras that I use are not noted for being low noise cameras. That is what you said.
I did say
People
that.
can
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of school, but the one I use is not famous for doing well in really low light.
You can look at that.
And that is
So, how about the noise? I'm going to talk about it in a second too. But
true. Okay.
talk to me
On
about
very
noise.
few occasions, I could count them on this one hand, and there's 5 digits. I've run into a situation where the light was so low, I couldn't add a tiny little pop of fill flash, that I was stuck having to shoot at, for me, 2500 ISO, and I'm cringing a bit, and 3200 would be just a life or death situation.
Wow.
But see, I care about the quality of light. And I'll be quite, if I'm offending people, then be offended. I hope you're not. But many people are happy to just crank that ISO up to what? 200,000 or whatever
can
those
do that.
goofy numbers are. And you're going to get terrible lighting on people. If the light is overhead and you've got all these shadows underneath the eyes,
So it doesn't matter.
shooting at high ISO isn't going to change that.
The lighting is, if the lighting's good, the lighting's good. If the lighting's bad, the noise doesn't matter. Or it matters less.
No,
It matters less than the lighting.
maybe it matters a little bit less. And I don't know if clients can notice that difference. Some can, some can't. Most probably don't care in this day and age.
I have seen in my little studio shooting at IS 200 noise with the GH4.
Okay.
And it's like, how can that even be? And it's not all over. It's in the because I like to do some moody lighting sometimes, and you can definitely see it. But that's a GH4, and now we're up to GH7, so things get better.
They should be getting better. Yeah. And then people have asked me about the image quality of the small sensor.
Yeah, we're talking about that.
And I have printed and delivered to clients 20 by 24 inch
Oh, no
portraits,
kidding.
family portraits.
You shot with this camera.
Oh, sure. I just jumped in and did it. It's
Wow.
what I had. It's all I had.
2024s.
Yes, without a lot of maybe some sharpening, but I don't go in and do hours worth of Photoshop work and layers and.
Oh, I love doing that
I
stuff.
know you do.
I love doing it. And Cliff, my friend Cliff, he does it even more. I mean, he creates masterpieces of layers.
Wow. Okay.
But I often use Define. Did you ever use any kind of noise reduction?
Not to speak
None.
of, really. Maybe do a little experimenting. And that's been it.
I love you, man. I love you. I use Define a lot. I'll use it because I don't know. It's really funny if you think about it, because I love to shoot film, and I gotta confess, number one, I'll use Define on film images because even though back in the day when I was shooting nothing but film in the 70s, especially, I didn't care about the grain. It was part of the image.
Exactly.
So you're like, well, but now it's like I don't want to see grain or noise, and so I wind up using it on some of my film images too. So I don't know if that's just because I'm obsessive compulsive, or maybe I am that too. But yeah, noise bugs me. I have a great post for people to check out the blog where I shot images right out here on Main Street in Parker at 212,000 at night. And it is absolute garbage. I mean, there are no people in the shots, but if they were in there, they were going to look horrible too.
I remember those
But I
images.
also shot at 50,000, and it wasn't too bad.
That's just over my head.
That's with, I don't know, is the K1 Pentax a full frame camera? I think so. I don't remember anywhere. I think it's a full frame camera,
All right.
24 by 36. So we've already talked about the kind of cameras. I talked about the million cameras I have or whatever. Half of them are film cameras because I really like to shoot film, even though I haven't shot any in a while. Okay, I don't know about you, Barry, but I think this is our best ever podcast. What do you think?
You know, Joe, I think you might be right. I wasn't keeping track, but, you know, now that you mention it, it is the best.
The best. Absolutely the best one. And I want to thank all 45 of you who liked our little preview that gave you a kind of a sneak peek of what we're going to do. And I want to especially thank the 3 people who gave us likes. So that was very nice. Thanks very much. And hopefully, if you're catching us for the first time, you'll also give us a like and a subscribe so that we can keep bringing these exciting podcasts to you.
Yeah, please keep coming back. We're having a great time doing this. It's helping us to remember old photo shoots and jobs and gigs and setting up this and doing some video recording. It's just all around awesome.
So thanks a lot, and we'll catch you on the flip-flop.
So long.
We need a catchphrase.
Time flies when you're having a good time.
It certainly
and funny
does.
things happen in the background
Yes.
of your set. Oh, man.
That's it. We're
Got it?
done. Yeah.